Okay, this is the Marietta bathroom job. This bathroom was built by the builder who did the neighborhood, and apparently he lived in this as well for a while. This tile is chipped on the edge here. One of the reasons I always use the metal transition strips as opposed to the marble ones is the marble will do the same thing, it'll chip. So the metal transition strip, had it been used over here, there's another little chip here you can see on the tile. Had it been used over here, we wouldn't have that issue. So why a builder would negate not putting a transition strip in here, I don't know. Plus the tile rises just above the carpet a little bit, while the whole thickness of the tile is actually above the carpet, and I like those to come together flush with each other. And the transition strip would meet up with the carpet eventually, but that's not the way he chose. Excuse me, another issue, this tile is not wet. It is dry, and you can see there's this grout line that has a light color, which was original color. These grout lines have a darker color, which is not the original color. Besides which, they're very thick. They're 1/4 inch grout lines, which I don't really prefer personally. If you look at these grout lines over by the toilet, where less foot traffic was going on, you have the original color, which is like almost like a bone type color back here. But in the areas where there's a lot of foot traffic, i.e. water, the water penetrated through the grout lines, and he used, without a doubt, he used gray thin set. What happens is, this is called bleed through. Excuse me. So you have the gray thin set, you have water penetration going through the grout line. The gray thin set mixes with that light colored grout eventually, and they kind of bleed together, giving you a darker grout line than you originally wanted. So again, he's a builder, but he negated to use a gray thin set, or he negated to use a white thin set, which with the lighter colored grout would have made that a non-issue. Anyway, by and large, it's not a bad job, but you know, it's a job a homeowner would do, or somebody just starting tile would do. Also, this is not the original tile. If you look in the shower, the original tile was this off-color ceramic. So there's no reason that he would have come in with this type of tile. This is basically porcelain, I think, or maybe a heavy-duty ceramic, but regardless, you don't come in with this color ceramic and this color on your shower. And if you look in the shower floor, they had a light colored ceramic or porcelain that matches this, with the rest of the shower being the light color ceramic, which just makes no sense whatsoever. So obviously, the guy had an issue with his floor tile. Probably the same ceramic was on here, and then he decided to change it out, which is why he changed out also this, I think. However, changing out all this tile just because you did that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think there was probably a problem with the shower pan at some point when he poured that, and which is why he came in here and redid it. The problem is he just did a really, really bad job. I see some cups that are around the drain that are really good. I would have never ever used 6-inch by 6-inch tile in a shower this small. This is basically a 3x3 shower. Aside from the bench, it would be about almost 3x4, but to use this large of a tile in here doesn't really make any sense. The lines are really, really bad. It dips down a lot further in this corner and goes up higher in that corner, and for an area this small, there shouldn't be that big of a profound difference. In addition, this tile was set in first and this tile was set in after, which is why you have this top grout line. The mold and mildew issue is another reason I don't like to do that, but had he put this tile on top of that tile, the water would have ran off naturally. So I never like to have a grout line that's horizontal like that. I'd rather have it vertical. Anyway, the bench that he put in here doesn't have any type of slope on it, neither does the curb. In fact, the curb is completely straight. If anything, I think it leans toward that way more than it does that way. So not putting any type of angle on there, 20, 30 degrees is what I like. Makes it really, really bad for the water penetration coming out, especially back here. And that's another thing that a builder wouldn't do, so I don't really get all this stuff. Notching out for the shower head when there are tools you can make a nice clean hole is another issue that I have. Plus the fact that he used Delorian gray grout for this white tile, and that's just, I don't know, I guess a personal preference, but why not use the same color grout for your shower? As I said, overall it's not bad. It's something I would expect somebody that's just starting out to do, but you know, definitely not a builder. Builders even sub their tile work, sub a lot of their work, and if he subbed this tile work and he didn't do it personally, then the sub was bad. But you know, like after you were finished, then you notice all these mistakes and you just simply don't pay the sub. You know, if you got mistakes, then you know they got to rectify them, and it never happened, so they didn't know what they were doing. This is interesting too. This shower valve is actually not even really attached, but look how close it is to the discussion. I mean, that thing should never be that close to the discussion. There's usually a little bit of give room right here, and this give room just doesn't exist. So to even get a good grip on that would be difficult. They're plastic anyway, so if this plastic had ever broke at any point, then he would have been screwed, or that plastic, in fact. Trying to get something to extend out far enough, I guess, would have been the issue at that point. But having it that close to discussion makes no sense. But anyway, so the job here is not doing anything with the vanity, but it's taking out all this flooring material, putting in a new tile that's going to be square. It's going to be porcelain, lighter color, and we're going to follow that into the shower area with the porcelain going up the walls. There's going to be, I think, a 6x6 porcelain, same family, that's going to go at eye level here on a diagonal. There's going to be a rope below that, or some type of trim, and a rope for some type of trim above that. So it'll be, you know, a diagonal type of design in the middle, which, again, I don't particularly like, but, you know, it's not for me. Above that is going to be the same 6x6, I believe, straight, or maybe it's going to be the 12. Yeah, I think it's 12x12. It's going to go up. These are cathedral ceilings, so obviously we can't go to the top of the shower because, you know, there is no really top of the shower in here unless I were to go to that corner there, which I would do, but the customer says that's too high, so we're probably going to go 1 or 2 tile above that and stop about here. And there's going to be a porcelain bullnose that matches, that's going to frame out this whole entire area. In addition, on this back wall, we're going to put in a niche, and the niche is going to be typically about 20, 21, 22 inches long and about 12 inches wide, with that same framing around it, and you know, a new shower fixture and all that stuff. And we're going to change out the toilet too. Other than that, it's just the floor and the shower. The guy did use a lot of substrate material. As you could tell out there, there's probably 1/2 inch Durock on here, and chances are he screwed it to the floor, so I'm not looking forward to tearing that up. And hopefully he used actually plywood and not presswood, because screwing the plywood and trying to take up Durock will mess that up, and we'll have to do a lot of work getting that back to normal. The customer is eventually going to put on-frame glass in here, so there's going to be a 6-inch panel right here where this panel is, and then a 24-inch door opening, or 28-inch, and that's not my area, but I've already got a price from a glass guy that he can do it for about $900, so that's a pretty good price, and he'll probably do that right away after I leave. So I'm going to get started here. This is day 1. Well, another little interesting thing, I only got started taking these doors out. Remember I told you the curb wasn't angled inward. The other problem with having that is that you have a lot of organisms that will live under that. I've seen little tiny organisms that have flourished up under that wet spot because there's no angle on the curb and the inside caulking wasn't done, but I've never seen a worm. This is actually a first. This worm doesn't look like he's living anymore, but you know, he came from somewhere. Yeah, it's pretty funny. The Durock that was put under there is about the only thing that has saved this curb, but I'm going to take a look at this curb here in a second, if I can find my pry bar. Durock that was put under here is 1/2 inch, but it's not sufficient. There's no red guard on it. Very little thin set on the tile itself. You can see how easily that came up. In fact, watch this. You know, just hardly any effort whatsoever, and I'm able to just pull these loose. So it's just not really done well at all. This Durock, likewise, is not done well at all. It comes up really easily. There is part of the shower pan. It was never wrapped, and it looks like they used plywood here. So they plywooded. Let me see what's under this shower pan. So they used 2x4s. They put plywood on the outside, put Durock on it, and then wrapped it. And, you know, didn't wrap the shower pan all the way around it anyway. So there's moisture in there here big time, and there shouldn't be moisture on your curb. Interesting. So there you are, home builder. Alright, I usually don't do video clips of midstream unless I find issues, and in this case, big issues going on. When they built the curb, it looks like they may have used pressure-treated lumber. It's hard to tell. Because it's so saturated with water, it's green. This is just filthy, disgusting. This water in here is fully saturated, not only on the inside of the curb. You know, if I pull this up, it's just, look at that. It's just everywhere. It's on the outside of the curb as well. The Durock that was used to embed inside here is wet as well. On the outside of the shower, definitely shouldn't be wet. In addition to, obviously, the inside of the shower, the Durock here is saturated as well. One of the reasons for that saturation, besides they used ceramic tile on the top of this curb and it was crap and they didn't do a good grouting job and all the other issues, is because they actually set this Durock inside of the pan. If you can see here, actually a lot of this Durock came out from here. So the Durock was actually set inside of the pan first, and then this tile was butted up against it, which is kind of back assward. So what you're doing is you're allowing all the moisture that's inherently in pans anyway to absorb into this porous surface, which is Durock, and it's going to come up, and at the worst case scenario, it's going to pop off your tile. When it gets so saturated, it degrades the thin set that's holding the tile. If there is thin set, sometimes, you know, people use, I don't know what they use here. Looks like they may have used adhesive. Doesn't look like thin set. Anyway, but besides which, it's already saturated. There is water and content in this pan that's just ridiculously huge. I mean, it's almost as if I just took a glass of water and poured it inside here. This trough is full of water. This is the outside edge of your pan. When it slopes down to the drain, there are weep holes around the drain. That water is supposed to just follow natural passage on the weep holes. So all shower pans are going to have somewhat, you know, moisture content, but nothing to the extent of this. It's all the way down in this trough, and then of course, look at that, it's just wet. Then of course you have insult to injury, which is actually introducing a porous surface into your water, which is inherently where your tile goes. In addition, this customer had issues downstairs. Right below us is a foyer where you walk inside the door, and there are wet spots down there where it's leaked before. So many reasons for that, none of the least of which is that this whole thing is saturated with water, and down in the corner here is probably where the water egressed down into the ceiling, but also where this bench used to be. They perforated the pan, which you never do. You're not supposed to perforate it with nails or a razor knife or anything. So what they did is they wrapped this curb halfway, which is kind of stupid. But once they wrapped the curb, they went, oh, wow, we got to still put this shower pan up. So they did a cut, and I don't even know where the cut stops, but it's way down here in the corner, and they cut away from the pan originally and gave this huge gap. Of course, they buttered up against here with the Durock, but hello, you got moisture inside here, so the moisture just naturally runs right between there, down onto the plywood and down into the ceiling. So I'm 99% sure that's where the problem came from. Most of the problem, but you know, this shower, had it been here for a couple more years, would have had more problems anyway. So yeah, you know, just do the job right the first time, and you don't have to go through this again. Okay, I am officially done with this bathroom. If you remember in the last video, the way I started out, I showed you why it's important to keep a strip, transition strip from the carpet to the tile, because remember those tile over here were chipped on the edge, and what they should have done is put in some type of strip I don't like the transition strips that are marble because they break as well, so I always put in the metal one. That'll keep the vacuum cleaner from ever hitting that. And they're going to put new carpet in here anyway, eventually, so the carpet guy will turn it on itself, turn it over on itself up against that strip that I put in there, and it'll be a nice clean transition at that point. So we came in with this porcelain tile on a diagonal. This floor, I hadn't intended on doing, I don't believe, at the beginning, but the customer wanted it done. It's not a huge floor, but it was difficult only because when they put the old Durarock down, it was half-inch Durarock, and they used construction adhesive. So they glued construction adhesive, put the Durarock down, put a couple of screws in there, not a whole lot, and then, you know, that kind of meshed with the subfloor, the plywood subfloor, and trust me, this was probably the most difficult floor I've ever had to take up because of all the glue. The glue wouldn't come up with the sheetrock, so all they had to be scraped down. So for whatever it's worth, don't use glue when you're putting down Durarock. It's way overkill, makes it harder for the next guy, and it really doesn't ensure that your tile is going to stay any better. So there you go. Anyway, I went ahead and put new baseboard and new quarter round all the way around at the edge and everything. This didn't go with half-inch Durarock. I actually put quarter-inch Durarock because I knew that my tile was also quarter-inch, so that my transition would be flowing nice and even instead of rising above like it did before. So despite that, I was able to bump up just probably half, not even quite half an inch, maybe a quarter-inch of the new baseboard. I bumped it up a little bit and then put the quarter round down there, so you don't really notice the discrepancy anywhere. The shower is done. So what we have now, instead of this crappy builder's grade tile that used to be in here along with the bench, a bunch of sun in my way. The bench used to be here, so obviously the bench is gone at this point. We use the same tile here we did on a straight pattern. We have the same type of bullnose that we use on the edge here. Actually, the bullnose goes all the way around like I always do, all the way around the top and down this side wall right here. I probably would have deferred to putting the bullnose out here, but the customer said he didn't like that unfinished edge there, which I didn't really mind too much because the bullnose part would wrap around here. But anyway, so he wanted it on the inside of the shower, and that's where it ended up. A couple of more remarks there. Anyway, he went with this curb top. I really like when the customer buys a piece of granite that's nice and polished. It's polished on both edges, front and back. The reason I like them so much, not because I mind building the curb, I mean, or I'm putting tile on the outside and the inside anyway. The reason I like them is because there's absolutely no grout line, so there's never an issue of the grout line being exposed to any type of water, mildew, or anything like that. The only grout lines you have is on the edge, on both of the edges of this thing, and it's kind of tapered off anyway, so the water should roll off of there. Plus, this curb, like all my curbs, are about 20-25 degree angle slope going inside. But I like them because they're going to last like forever. This will never have a water penetration into the curb that I built. Not that mine would anyway, but you know, I like these. This is probably about an inch thick, so pretty heavy, and it's going to really last. I don't particularly like the color myself because there's no other color like that in this whole shower. So to me that's a little bit funky, but that's not me living here, so it doesn't really matter. What we did is this tile is the same tile as this 12 by 12, actually 13 by 13 porcelain. The customer wanted staggered, what I call staggered. Some people call it brick pattern or whatever. So you know, you get half cuts and full pieces, half cuts and full pieces. Up to this point here, this was his idea of a trim center of the shower, which I usually do anyway. My trim center of the shower is usually about 1/3 this size. He wanted it 2/3 bigger to envelop the whole niche that I put in there. Again, this is not my flavor, my style. I think it's way too large personally, but it is what it is. So what we did is we took this 2x2 tile that I put on the shower floor, and we used a strip of the 2x2 at the bottom and along the top, and did a little cut through along here so everything would even up all the way down here, and as well as here. So that's the frame out. What I had to do is I had to, since the niche was already built prior to this being done, I had to figure out the math as far as getting this even, which is why you have a little piece of tile cut there, a little piece of tile cut there, because I had 20.5 inches exactly from top to bottom here. And so it worked out. He wanted 2 rows of this 6x6 tile, like this diamond shape, and that's what he got. And then of course the niche got done with the same tile is on the floor, is on the back of here. Again, that's not my signature. My signature is usually take one of these tiles, put it on a diagonal back here, and then take about 4 of these and put that center on one of these on a diagonal right here. If you've seen my other videos, you already know what I'm talking about. I think it looks sharper. I think that's way too busy, way too many grout lines for me. But again, that's just me. To me, it looks like a big blanket, like a, I don't know, some type of tile blanket. Anyway, we use the same bull nose to frame this out. I always frame out my niches 99.9% of the time, unless the customer for some reason can't get a bull nose or something to match, which is unusual, but it does happen sometimes. I just like the framed effect. Gives it a sharper appearance. Of course, you know, all my niches have a slight slope coming out, so the water will come off. We got the gooseneck shower head, which was not purchased with the valve. It was purchased separately, but those can be purchased at Ferguson or any other plumbing supply place. And then, you know, the shower valve itself got changed out. So there it is. Complete crap shower to a really decent, nice looking shower that anybody would be proud to take a shower in. The only issue I had with this entire job was that there's about probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 inches from the curb out to this wall here, which I normally would just build my curb out to there and get it that extra little square footage. The problem I ran into is that this area right here matches up to the edge of this window here. This window is not going anywhere. You see how big it is. So there's no way I could have taken out the window and moved it to the left, which would have got me probably another extra 2 or 3 square feet by the time I bumped it out to here to match up with this wall. And depth-wise, it would have been a little bit larger. So that's what I usually try and do, is make the showers as large as possible. And in this case, I wasn't able to, but I did get it to about 8.5 foot, or just about 8 foot in height. So it does look larger, even though it's the same size. But it's much better than what it was, and I am done with this job, so I'm going to back out of here and move on to the next one.